Kaikandra. 2 7.
Okay.
Dikshuji Foundation అనేది. Dikshuji Foundation అనేది. చిన్న ఇంకా చూడు.
So we're gonna start class now. Collecting and displaying data. What you are going to learn. Collect data by asking questions, record data using tally marks, convert tallies into pictographs, create and read bar graphs, understand information from graphs. Let's begin. So we will come back to the videos after a brief summary of what it is. So first, let's begin with, have you ever asked your friends a question like, what is your favorite color? If we ask many people the same question, we collect data. Data helps us understand information. What is data?
Search.
Data means information we collect. General questions.
Sound
What is your favorite color? So possible answers could include red, blue, green, and yellow. We collect answers from people. Okay. So the first step is collecting data. So what is your favorite color? Ask 5 people. So an example would be, you go to person 1, you ask them what their favorite color is, and they give you a response, and you record that response. In this example, say that response is blue. So you would write person 1 and then blue. You would go to person 2 next and ask them what is their favorite color. Wait for a response and record their response as well. If they say red, you say person 2 red. You go to person 3 next, ask them what's their favorite color. Record their response and write person 3 blue. And that same pattern goes on and on for the rest of the steps. Now we organize data. So we record data using tallies. Tally marks help us count quickly instead of writing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tallies make it easier to record data and count them all up later at the end. So for example, we asked 5 people in total what their favorite color was. 3 people said they liked blue. 1 person said they liked red. And 1 person said they liked green. So tallies count responses. Every line is 1 vote. So these are 3 people, 3 votes. 1 person, 1 vote. 1 person, 1 vote. Step 3 is to make a table. So favorite color, and then a column for all of the colors. The tallies, so we can record the data, and then the total at the very end to count up all of the tallies you've made. So a table like this organizes data clearly for you to see. And now we convert this table into a pictograph. A pictograph uses pictures to show data. For example, favorite color, blue. We have 3 blue dots, meaning 3 people, or 3 of those pictures represent 3 votes for the color blue. So blue got 3 votes from 3 people. Red got 1 vote from 1 person. Green got 1 vote from 1 person. Convert to a bar graph. A bar graph shows data using bars. It can be, usually you see a vertical one. In this case, this is a horizontal bar graph. So the taller the bar, the more votes it has. So you can see blue has the biggest bar. Therefore, blue has the most votes. Red has an even smaller bar, and it's equal to green. Since the sizes are equal, we know they're the same size and it's less than blue. So this is a common way of showing data. So let's go over an example survey. Question: favorite fruit. Results: apple 4, banana 2, orange 3. Remember, how we get to this is we created a table when surveying. We have all of the fruits in one column, we have the tallies in the next column, and we have the totals in the next column after that. After finding the totals for each fruit, we take the totals and the corresponding fruit, and we can see the results displayed like this. So we have 4 votes, 4 people for apple, 2 people, so 2 votes for bananas, and 3 people, so 3 votes for orange. So which fruit is the most popular? So obviously we would just go after the highest number here, because the most popular just means the one with the most votes. And the most votes is apple. 4 is greater than 3, and 4 is greater than 2. Okay. Practice. Look at the data. Favorite pet. So under favorite pet, there's dog, cat, and fish. We have 5 votes for dog, so 5 people voted for dog. 2 votes for cat, so 2 people voted for cat. And 1 vote for fish, so 1 person voted for fish. Questions. Which pet is the most popular? Which pet is least popular? How many students like dogs? So we can wait 3 minutes and we'll come back. Yeah. Okay, so which pet is most popular? So we can see dog has 5 votes, cat has 2 votes, and fish has 1 vote. So dog has the most votes here. So dog would be the most popular. What pet is least popular? So what pet has the least votes? Fish. How many students like dogs? So if we count up the votes, we get 5, and that means 5 people voted for it. So 5 students, or just 5 people. Okay, let's go back to some of the videos here.
Interpreting data from daily life context. Hey Bubbly, what are you doing in the garden? Bunty, Mummy has prepared this table and given it to me. There are different flowers in the garden. I am counting the blossomed flowers to find out flowers that have blossomed. Why? Data. I mean to collect the data. Hey, but the data about all the blossomed flowers is already filled in this table. That's why you don't need to count the flowers one by one in the garden. Why? Because whatever details that are already filled in this table about the flowers, you just need to understand those data. How is that? Come on, let me teach you. Today, in this video, we will learn to interpret data from the table. Look, there are different flowers in this garden. How many flowers have blossomed? That data has been collected and filled in the table. That's why it has been written on the top of the table the number of blossomed flowers in the garden. There are 2 columns in the table. In the first column, the blossomed flowers in the garden are written. Come on, read those. The names of the flowers are marigold flower, rose flower, and champa flower. From this data, we can know that 3 types of flowers have blossomed in the garden. Yes, first is marigold flower, second rose flower, and third is champa flower. Come on, now read the second column. What is the number of flowers? The number of marigold flowers is 6. The number of rose flowers is 4. And the number of champa flowers is 9. Yes, the data collected about the number of blossom flowers in the garden has been shown in this table. very interesting. And now I will not have to count the flowers one by one. After understanding the table, I have understood which and how many flowers have blossomed in the garden. What have you understood? I understood that there are 3 kinds of flowers, marigold, rose and champa, that have blossomed in the garden. And there are 6 marigold flowers, 4 rose flowers and 9 champa flowers that have blossomed in the garden. Thank you, Bunty. You have really explained the data in the table very well. Yes. Okay. Now show me the second table which Mummy has given to you. Here it is. Hey, there are only pictures of fruits in this table. The number of fruits are not written. So what will you do now? I will go to the kitchen now and count the number of fruits and come back. Hey, stop. You do not have to go anywhere. Why? Come on. All the data has been shown in this table. How is that? Look, which pictures are there in the column of fruits in the table? There are pictures of apple, pineapple, pomegranate and orange. Now have you understood that the data given is about which fruits? Yes, but how will I know the number of fruits without counting them? It is easy. How many pictures of apples are given in this table? There are 5 pictures of apples. Yes, so we have to write the number of apples, 5, in the column of number of fruits. Similarly, there is 1 picture of pineapple. So we have to write the number of pineapples 1 in the column of number of fruits. There are 3 pictures of pomegranate. So we have to write the number of pomegranates 3 in the column of number of fruits. There are 4 pictures of oranges. So we have to write the number of oranges 4 in the column of number of fruits. Absolutely right, Bubbly. Now you will be able to interpret the data given in the table, won't you? Yes, it is very easy to interpret the data given in the table. Thank you, Bunty.
So if we just review this video for a second. So they have the name of the flowers here. So, yeah. So first they have the name of the flowers. Marigold, rose, champa, and
Marigold, rose, mango.
And in the middle row, for larger data sets and larger samples of people, we would have tallies instead of numbers so that we could easily record data from large samples of people and then total them up at the end. But in this case, since we only have a total of 19, we wouldn't have to do all of that.
Look, there are different flowers in this garden. How many flowers have blossomed?
How many flowers call them? Why did they call them?
4
This is
rose
real life
flowers and
context. So when we're looking at this picture and we're recording data, we look at the marigold flowers and we count them. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4 of the rose, and champa flowers.
9 champa flowers.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay.
that have blossomed in the garden. Thank you, Bunty. You have really explained the data in the table very well. Yes. Okay. Now show me the second table. Hey, there are only pictures of fruits in.
So here, this is similar to pictographs. So we draw a picture for every single amount of each type of fruit or whatever subject is here.
This table.
And this basically tells us which fruit because of the picture, and also how many there are because of how many we see.
The number of fruits are to the kitchen now. The data. But with an orange. Now have you understood that the data given is about which fruits? Yes, but how will I know the number of fruits without counting them? It is easy. How many pictures of apples are given in this table? There are 5 pictures of apples. Yes, so we have to write the number of apples, 5, in the column of number of fruits. Similarly, there is 1 picture of pineapple. So we have to write the number of pineapples 1 in the column of number of fruits.
And after doing this, the next step would be a bar graph. So we would have a x-axis and a y-axis, and our biggest number is 5 here. So we would have the y-axis go up to 5, and our biggest we have 4 fruits here, so we would have 4 bars for each fruit. Our apples bar goes up to 5. Our pineapples graph goes up to 1. Our pomegranates graph bar goes up to 3, and our oranges bar goes up to 4. They all should have equal spacing in the horizontal direction, and the height of each of the bars tells us which is the most popular and which is the least popular. So that's it for that video.
Welcome everybody to Statistics, Collecting and Representing Data Part 2. This resource builds on Collecting and Representing Data Part 1 and is designed to further extend learners' thinking and understanding about how graphs represent data. Now, the purpose of this resource is to support learners to develop an understanding of how bar graphs represent data and to support learners to derive meaning from a graph. And what we're going to do is we're going to build on Part 1 and further extend learners' thinking. Generating data. Now, as with Part 1, we want the learners to generate their own data and their own information to ensure that it's meaningful and engaging. And a key learning point of this content is that graphs tell a story, and it's our job to work out what that story is. So again, in the context of sport and fitness, and remembering that the sport and fitness learners are often avid runners, we're going to ask this question: how far do you run every week? And again, you can insert your own question to generate data on any topic. Now, in a similar way to Part 1, we're going to ask learners to record how far they run on the board. Now, some learners will run 50k, some will run 20k, but essentially we're recording all of these amounts on the board. And in the end, we end up with data. Now, once you have recorded the distances on the board, draw the vertical axis and ask the learners what a suitable numerical framework is. That is, what numbers are you going to go up to and in what increments? Now, as you can see here, because we have a maximum of 50k that the learners are given, that's our maximum quantity, and we're looking for an efficient way of getting to 50k but representing the data. So we've decided to do it in tens. Once this discussion is complete, you're going to ask the learners to come up to the board, write their name on the horizontal axis, and then draw in exactly how far they run. Once the learners have finished, it'll look something like this. Now, once the learners have entered their data into this graph, it's a good idea to have a discussion about it and to really pull out some of the things that it's telling us. Once this is done, you're going to explain to the learners that there are more efficient ways of representing this data, and you might ask them what those different ways are. Then, in another part of the board, you'll write 2 new axes and get ready to write a new graph. Now, as you can see, what we've done here is we've changed what the axes represent. And this is usually an interesting point for the learners. So along the bottom, you might write in number of kilometers. And on the vertical axis, you might write the number of people. And then you're going to ask the learners to collate the data and write it in themselves. How many people ran 10 kilometers? There were 2. How many ran 15? There were 2. 20, there were 3. And so on and so on. And you can see that nobody ran 35. 1 ran 40, 1 ran 50, and you might have a discussion about the findings of this data. Now, if you get the opportunity to show both graphs on the board at the same time, usually it's quite enlightening to students to see how the data can be better represented by this graph simply by changing what the axes represent. Finally, step 5, we're going to use the graph to ask the learners a series of questions to help them to read and delve behind it a bit more and develop the story of the graph. So question number 1 might, for example, be, how many people run 20 kilometers per week? And they can look at the graph and see, yes, there's 3 people in this class that run 20 kilometers per week. Number 2, what's the second greatest distance run per week? Somebody runs 40 kilometers there. That's the second greatest distance. Number 3, what's the most commonly run distance per week? Again, the graph lends itself to this. We can see the largest bar there is the 20 kilometer bar, so 3 people run that. And 4, beginning to use the data in the graph to make inferences or to predict what might happen in the future. If a new learner was to enter the class, what could we say about how far they run? And this usually engenders a lot of good discussions because somebody will say, well, we don't know how far they run because we don't know what they do. But you can get a sense of how far they would run. For example, they're likely to run somewhere between 10 and 50 kilometers, just based on the evidence that we already have. So in summary, write a question on the board to generate discussion and data, discuss the axes and have the learners add their data to the bar graph, discuss other ways to represent the data and draw in new axes. And again, this is the difficult bit of this lesson, and that is getting the learners to think about how we might re-represent those data. Have the learners add the data and introduce questions to the learners to get them thinking about it. Welcome to Collecting and Representing Data Part 1. Now, this particular resource is designed for learners at steps 1 and 2 of the learning data develop and generate or becomes. The last part of this resource is going to include some ideas that you could use in your context. But for now, we're going to look at how this might work in a sport and fitness context and simply ask the learners, what kind of physical activities do you do? And then we're going to ask the learners to predict what other learners will say and record these on the board. Collecting the data. Write the learners' responses on the board. Now, the learners will be thinking about what the other people will be doing, what their physical activities are, and you should get a good variety of ideas on the board. So running, walking, martial arts, cycling, rugby, lifting weights, tennis, tramping, CrossFit, soccer, swimming. Now, the learners are thinking about what other learners are thinking, and so they're beginning to predict what the data might say, and we can come back to this at the end and compare. Teaching points. Now, step 3, hand out sticky notes and ask the learners to write their own responses on the notes and then have them stick these to the board. Organising the data. Now, once the learners have written their physical activities on the sticky notes and put them on the whiteboard, you'll have a whiteboard that's full of different ideas that different people have done. The next activity is probably the hardest part, and that's looking at how we can organise these data. And what we're talking about is nice subsets that we can put things into. Now eventually you have to decide how the data are going to be organised. And what you can see here is how it's been organised in a class that I ran where the learners suggested that we break them into team sports, individual sports, and just general fitness. And so the idea is you let the learners take the post-its and put them into a bar graph. So you will draw the axis on the board, the categories, and then ask the learners to arrange them as they see fit. Now, step 5, draw as a bar. This is a subtle but important step. While the post-its are still there, you want to ask them what we might have on the vertical axis. What kind of numbers would be good to have there? And often learners will just be thinking they'll number 1 through to 10, and depending on how many you get, that may be appropriate or not. But it's a good idea to challenge them about how the numbering might work. So what you can see here is we've gone up in 2s, 0, 2, 4, 6. And so you would just mark that on the board. And then what the idea is we're going to remove the post-its and replace them with a bar. The best way to do this is to outline the post-its with a whiteboard marker and then remove the post-its. Now for the final stage, step 6, labeling the axes and the title. You're going to ask the learners, now that we've got our team sports, individual sports and fitness, the categories, and our numbers on the side, what more can we add to this graph to make it meaningful? And so we might want a title, for example. So the title at the top there is participation in organised and non-organised activities. And we've got the bottom axis, which we've called the types of physical activities. And on the side, the number of people doing them. At the end of all this, we have a graph written on the whiteboard that they've constructed themselves out of their own data, labelled, and now we can see how it works. So just in summary, write a question on the board to generate discussion and data. Write the learners' responses on the board, get them to predict what they think other people will say. Hand out the sticky notes and ask the learners to write their responses on the notes and then stick these to the whiteboard. Then have the learners discuss how these can be categorized, and that's always probably the most interesting part of this. And then make sure you draw it as a bar, so you're removing the stick-it notes and you're drawing it just as a single bar and you're putting the axes in there as well. And then number 6, labeling the axes and the title of the graph, important as well. And it's a good idea sometimes to take a photo of the graph that they've made, and you can do the activity again in a few weeks and compare the different data. Now just finally, ideas for topics. This is for a sport and fitness course. Some good ideas are books that people have read. Ask them to write down all the books they've read, and then you can categorize these into genres. Movies that people have seen is always easy. Most people have seen movies. And you can categorize these into quality, viewership numbers, that is how many people have seen them, or the release date. Leisure activities, what type of things do people do when they're relaxing? If you really want to step it up, then you could have a look at unit standards that learners have achieved. What unit standards have people got here? And you could categorize these into perhaps difficulty, timeframes, or motivation, and so on. This activity has a lot of scope to be expanded, and we're going to continue that in part 2.
Okay, so favorite ice cream. Chocolate, there's 4 people, so 4 votes. Vanilla has 3 people, so 3 votes. And strawberry has 2 people, so 2 votes. Which flavor has the most votes? So chocolate has the most people, therefore they have the most votes. And strawberry. So which one has the least votes? So strawberry has the least people. So strawberry has the least votes. Now, You can do this for homework too, but ask 5 people in your house, what is your favorite color? Record the answers using tally marks, and then total them up at the end. And after you're finished with that, make your graph. So after you're done collecting all your data, you make the graph with each of with the first column being favorite color, the second column being the tally marks, and the third column being the totals of all the tally marks. Once you've made that graph, you can move on to a pictograph. So you take the number of, for example, if you had 2 blues here and 3 reds, so you could draw in colored pencil blue 2 times, so we could distinguish that there are 2 blues, and you could draw red 3 times in red colored pencil to show that there are 3 reds for a pictograph. Another option is a bar graph. So the most common form is a vertical bar graph. So we would have each color on the bottom axis and the number of people in the y-axis, and for each color we would draw a bar for how many votes it got. And using this, we can tell, like, depending on the height of the bars, which has the most votes and which has the least votes. And that's another valid way to show data. And if there's any questions, ask. Okay. And now complete the worksheet for homework. Okay. So part A, so ask 5 people their favorite color, record answers using tally marks, convert tallies into a pictograph or a bar graph if you want to take that route, and draw a bar graph. Okay. You don't have to do both. You can pick between a pictograph or a bar graph. That's fine. So that's it for this lesson. So we learned collecting data by asking questions, recording data using tally marks, converting tallies into pictographs, create and read bar graphs, understand information from graphs. So that's it for today's class. Goodbye.